don't do it. And that's why. So people have to understand why they should do it. What is global warming? Just
I think this is really a vital point. I think if I understand it correctly, is actually we all know and we have the information. So why does nothing change? And why do people don't change the way they act? Why don't they implement alternatives? Why don't they consume renewable energy? Why don't we close all the nuclear reactors and so forth?
Yeah,
the normal people.
They don't understand what's happening. It's a very bad show.
Yeah, but this is the point about climate change, is that it seems for the ordinary people very far of their immediate needs and their immediate vital interests. And this is the thing. I mean, we live in a capitalist system where people are raised to believe that the primarily aim of their existence is to maximize their personal satisfaction on a short-term basis, where there is actually no long-term perspective of, what will I do when I will get old. I will make a lot of money and then anything will be nice, So this is what most people are raised up through our society to believe, and I think we lost a sense of acting on a collective level, because in terms of our consumption, our ways to consume, it is all individualized. We are always focused on the individual. So now that you have a problem like climate change, which means to answer we need to find a collective answer. Societies need to cooperate, neighborhoods need to cooperate. To implement alternatives, it means cooperation. It doesn't mean competition, it means acting together, defining collective rules. It means states collaborating. But at the moment, in the geopolitical system of the world, states are fighting at each other for resources, for power, and so forth. So, and this is the world as it is. And this is, for me personally, the reason why it is so difficult to act and to push for the system change. But I don't think we should give up. Also, the other problem of the specific problem about climate change is that there is a discrepancy between who bears the responsibility and who pays the cost. So we, the northern states, were responsible for this mess, as we emitted greenhouse gases for 100 years with our industrial system of overconsumption and more and more and more. But who's paying the cost now is the poor states of the south. And the IPCC says it very clearly. The first victims of climate change are vulnerable, poor persons in the south. They will be the first victims of the droughts, of declining agricultural productivity, and so forth and so forth. The islands of the Pacific, etc., the people living on the shore, they will be affected by the rise of sea levels. So why should the northern states? We are good so far. So far we are okay. We will perhaps have a little rise of temperature, but why should we act as states? This is what politicians, I think, many politicians believe. But it doesn't mean that we as activists can't fight against it and reach the general public and the general population, who seems to be far from it. But in reality they are not far, because even here in the north, the poor people and working class people are the first victims of climate change. Take, for example, the example of energy precarity. You have, and it will be stronger and stronger, you have a rising cost of energy. And who is affected by that? It's the poor working class population, and they will again pay the cost for that. And this is, for example, one argument we can put forward to say, it's not only about protecting the environment, it's also defending your right and your position. you know, and your living conditions.
I've heard some people say that this climate rise of temperature is actually nonsense. What do you say to that?
Come on, every scientific thing is in the direction of temperature increase. You cannot.
But that's exactly what I was trying to indicate. I'm a bit of a climatologist by trade, but I'm not working with it anymore. But the problem is that there exists a lot of climatological models. Some act on a large scale, some on a small scale, time scale, and so on. And the problem is that information is being misused to generate statements. So they apply a model which is not really applicable to the situation we're trying to talk about because it's the wrong time scale or the wrong spatial scale that they're trying to model on. And it indicates that the temperature change has nothing to do with greenhouse gases. But I heard one American parliament guy once say that it has to do with global wobbling. I was like, okay. It's a very funny fragment, but I mean, it's stuff like that that happens all the time, and I think that's maybe as a scientist what's maybe the problem, that since integral scientists, they feel like, well, we can't make a hard statement because we're so uncertain about where we're going to end, because there is a lot of uncertainty. And they're too careful, whilst actually the ones that are trying to undermine the theory are quite hard-spoken and outspoken and say like, well, this is the case and my model is right, and maybe as a scientist we need to clearly state what we're actually really sure about, even considering our assumptions that we make in the models. It maybe sounds very technical, but on a political level it's very important, because if you go to a politician and you have an uncertain model, he will say like, well, I don't know where I'm going to end up because you have 50% uncertainty on your result. I cannot act upon that. But actually, having uncertainty is a lot of information for how you should manage your situation, and I think that's how we can influence the system. But it's very risky because it's a risk of populist statements, which clearly are much easier to understand than to understand that we don't know exactly what we're going to do, but we need to do some. I mean, it's a hard message, but that's a bit the reason why these statements still occur. But the general consensus is that temperature is rising, and that humans are causing it.
One thing I've heard is that CO2, we need CO2, the plants need it, as carbon dioxide.
Yeah, it's rising. It's rising. We need it, but it's rising. That's the problem.
You mean it's imbalanced?
Yeah, it's not imbalanced. That's the thing. Yeah.
Plants need CO2 to make oxygen and photosynthesis. But
carbon dioxide is not a poison, of course.
The greenhouse.
Yeah, we need it.
Yeah, exactly.
We need it.
The greenhouse gas effect we need to survive. But the thing is that it's getting worse, you know, and because of, without the greenhouse gas effect, the temperature here is min 15 degrees. Minus 15 degrees you cannot live. But with min 18 degrees. With a greenhouse gas affecting, it is plus.
Are you talking about CO2 now? CO2.
Yeah.
Well,
and also methane,
ozone layer and
carbon dioxide and waterstoel enzovoort. Right?
Sorry, just one correction. The average Earth temperature before we caused the climate change was 14.2 degrees.
No, that's not the comparison. It's you've got the greenhouse effect around the Earth, which isn't what we're talking about right now, which is the change in the greenhouse effect. You've got the greenhouse effect, which when solar rays come in, they change their frequency and it gets transformed into a different kind of heat. And so the long wave radiation isn't able to escape through the ozone layer and other stuff and gets trapped by CO2, methane, hydrogen, all of those molecules which form our air. And that way without, as she was saying, without that, our temperature would be way below freezing. So it would be -15,